Hello, and welcome to The Splain. Dan Rothenberg and Joe Klosik, two guys trying to figure it out. Not the right wing, not the brosphere. Left of center, with humor and empathy.
Hello.
How you doing today?
I just had a very California lunch. I just ate an avocado with a spoon that came from my girlfriend's mother's tree.
Wow, that went weird and then confusing. Quick check-in on the beard.
Oh yeah,
Do
so
you see it?
I
See
see
it
some
coming
stuff.
in?
No, I definitely see some change. I see some stubble. If I saw you walking down the street, I would cross to the other side.
All right,
Just
good.
just right now based on that.
We're getting there. So it's been a transition phase where I'm just, I think, looking hungover.
Little
And
hungover.
people are
Yeah.
asking me if I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I haven't reached the destination.
It makes you look a little tougher. It makes you look like I'm afraid to ask you for the time.
Okay.
If we were
Because I'm tough or because I'm unstable?
maybe a little bit of both.
All right.
But it's not you, it's the beard or
I know.
it's
It
the
occurred
stubble.
to me as I'm doing this little experiment. I'm like, Dan, you're a therapist. I'm
So are you afraid that when you ask clients questions, it's going to seem like a threat?
I'm just not looking my best.
Are you
Not
going to
looking
explain what you're doing
great.
to
You can't.
clients?
No, can't do that. Dude, I got a podcast. All right. I got a podcast. Yeah, so do I.
Who doesn't?
I came here to get a life though.
And then your
So if
patient is going on their
two
podcast.
people with podcasts, nothing gets done.
Nothing gets done.
One thing I noticed, the only experience I had that might have been beard specific was we had this. My wife does all of the internal construction work in the house. Get a new thing, replace the thing,
Wow.
whatever.
You're very lucky. Wow.
She's
Internal construction.
mm-hmm.
That's quite a term.
That's how much I don't know what that is. I made up a term. When you got to fix stuff,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
flip a switch, or
Right.
change the fuse.
Internal construction.
I
That's a
do
good term.
I do the shopping and the cooking. So you can see we're gender roles neutral,
I
fluid
like it. I like it.
household. It works.
So what
for
have you
us.
noticed that's beard related that might
Okay,
have
so
changed?
this dude with full beard,
Yeah.
as is most guys in Portland, came in. He was a plumber or an electrician. He looks me right in the eye, knowingly, kind of goes, "What's up, buddy?"
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was like, but that never happens to me. And it was a kind of a knowingly
You're gumming in the club.
something.
You're getting there.
Yeah. And I'm like,
you're almost there.
yeah, my first thought is I'm a customer. And then it hit me. It's the beard.
The beard.
Might be the beard. So that's
Okay.
that's the beginning. And I think in a week it'll be more.
Yeah.
It'll look great, man.
Yeah. I want to look like a Viking that has a lot of existential dread.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm nailing it.
I think you're nailing it so much that no one would ever think of that.
Perfect.
You're a audience of one for yourself.
I've been used to that most of my life.
Okay, Joe, what are we talking about?
So let's dive in today on political correctness and some comedians' obsession with being canceled, because the argument is you can't say anything anymore because people get offended, so it makes it difficult to be funny, which is on its face an absurd thing to say.
Right.
A little bit of context, right? Let's go back.
Okay, so just to pinpoint it, the idea of the PC police canceling people, making it hard to be a comedian.
I can't say anything now because of woke.
Yet,
yeah,
in the process, it's become a whole new genre of comedy. If anything, it's widened.
If anything, if I decided to start punching down and attacking marginalized communities, my career would probably take off.
And you would somehow be seen as fighting the power.
Yeah, fighting the power because transsexuals, migrants,
Yeah.
homosexuals, people with cognitive disabilities, they're the ones in charge. They have all the power. It's
Exactly.
on its face, it's absurd, right? Like
It's absurd and a tad fascisty.
I think it's more than just a tad, and I don't think
Yeah.
they realize how they play into it. But I
Right.
mean, throw out the example of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan
Uh-huh.
is the number one podcaster in America. He literally makes multi-million dollars every year.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes so far, he had a Netflix special, and he still clings to the idea that I've been canceled. Listen, you can't be paid millions of dollars, also
Right.
be on other platforms, and be canceled. It's absurd.
You're the opposite of
You're
cancel.
the opposite of canceled.
You're
You're everywhere.
okay.
You're everywhere.
We need to coin a term for that dichotomy.
Yeah,
You
it's
are
bullshit. That's the term.
bullshit. You
Yeah,
are popular canceled. You
yeah.
are, yeah, successfully canceled.
Even when you look at some of the other examples, like Louis C.K. Now, here,
Mhm.
he's a little bit more interesting. At one time, that was a comedian I very much idolized. I thought what he was
He was my
doing.
favorite.
Yeah, okay, you
Absolute.
too. Okay, yeah, amazing.
I would be willing to say, whether I like it or not, he is the most brilliant living comedian
I
living.
believe he was at one time. I would
Yeah.
agree with that at one time. He got quote unquote canceled because he
Mm-hmm.
was doing some creepy sexual things. Now, here's the thing about Louis C.K., and I think you'll agree with this too, that I think is really fascinating and really sad. If there was any comedian
Mm-hmm.
that could have articulated
Yeah.
how wrong he was and what
Yes.
he had learned, it would have
Powered
been
through
Louis
it
C.K.
artistically. And I
Yeah,
thought he was going to do it. I
I
thought
thought he
he
was going
was
to
going
do
to
it, and he
take all
backed
that
away.
baggage
Yeah.
and heal us all.
I
Which is
mean,
ridiculous that the perpetrator is going to be the solution. But I hear you.
he really seemed if there was anybody that could have found a way to talk about it in a nuanced and
Mm-hmm.
confessional way,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been Louis C.K. And unfortunately, it seemed like he decided, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to appeal to the people that are going to support me. This guy was at the pinnacle.
And I would add, this just me. I was not a fan. I was the fan.
Yeah.
I have heard, not so much anymore, and we'll get to the anymore, because I know someone listening to this is going, why'd you stop? Why'd you stop listening to him? So he's not funny anymore? Why don't I listen to him anymore? That's a nuanced discussion. And people would probably argue it's because you're PC woke and he's still the same funny guy. So go ahead and laugh at him. I don't want to laugh at him anymore.
Yeah. I
Not
mean,
because I'm consciously boycotting him.
objectively speaking, right? I was not boycotting him either. I wanted to continue to listen. I wanted to find that very nuanced gray area of separating the artist from the art, but
Mm-hmm.
his art has suffered as a result.
I
And
I
he's
agree.
not that same funny,
Right.
intuitive, articulate comedian anymore. And I think he made, I don't know if he's aware of it. I think he's aware of it because he's a pretty aware guy. He made a conscious choice to appeal to the audience that was going to support him.
Yeah. He said that there's a vibe to him now that says, I've fucking suffered enough.
Yeah.
And
And there's a difference between being canceled outright. That's it. We're never, ever going to give you an opportunity to practice your art again.
so a lot of people would say, what do you mean? He has suffered enough. He got crucified,
Maybe he
right?
has. Yeah.
I don't think he has. But this is something
All right.
this is something I've always wanted to address. There's this idea, people think he suffered and now the poor guy is crawling back. And again, it's this spotlight on him as though he was the victim, which perpetuates the whole problem.
Yeah.
Again, we can talk about how he was canceled, but it's also interesting to talk about how he was uncanceled and the sentiment behind that. So
Yeah.
it's not just that he's back with sympathy for him.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? He's back being held up as a martyr.
Yeah.
That to me is what is, I would imagine, destructive to the women that he
Oh yeah,
victimized.
it's
And that
got to be.
tends to happen culturally on a
Yeah.
macro level. So again, it's getting back to a little bit of the, sorry, I'm on a rant here. I'll be done in a sec. It gets back to that a little what we talked about last time with the critical race theory of the status quo adjusts when it needs to and then it goes back.
Yeah.
So the sort of the traditional power leading the way. So yes, where people are getting some repercussions from sexually abusing those they have power over, but along with that comes a sentiment of Jesus, a guy can't get a break. Innocent until proven guilty, and
Yeah.
enough is
Yeah.
enough. He's just
Yeah.
a comedian.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, he's more empowered than the women he victimized. And that's, to me, he has the ability to control that narrative. And that's what
Well,
disappoints me most about Louis. It got
yeah.
conflated into this idea that his kink got exposed.
At the end of the day, here's what I would say. Can you remember
Mm-hmm.
any of the names of the women
Mm-hmm.
who brought this forward? And I bet you 95% of people can't.
Right.
And
Right.
then even when people were like, okay, we believe that happened, then the question is, what were you doing in his room at
Yeah.
midnight?
And at the end of the day, to me, what I really have a problem with is he allowed the narrative to
Yeah.
become my kink got exposed and I'm a little bit of a freak, but aren't we all? And that's really what happened. When the issue is you put these people in a horrible situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You fucked over your fellow comedians, and we're
Yeah.
all we have.
Yeah.
You, especially with his status, because we know by living in San Francisco, there was always a king of the mountain, and you worship
Yeah. Yeah.
that comedian. And we got nothing as comedians. We got no union, we got no wages, we got no benefits. I love Tom Rhodes once said, he was talking about the benefits we get. You go to the bar, you say, my tooth hurts. And the bartender says, you want a shot? That's our
That's our
dental.
dental. That's our
Yeah.
dental plan. Yeah. Yeah.
And
True.
that
True.
it's the position
But
you put people in.
I hear
And
everything that
when
you're
that
saying.
happens, you lose your fucking job.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
You
absolutely.
you lose your goddamn job.
There's not an HR
Yeah, you lose your
in
fucking
the
job.
world where you could do that and still
Uh-huh.
have your job. So he's
And
lucky that he's got a job.
and I'm fine with it. Anyone can plow their trade. You can get back on a stage and do your thing. I can't argue with that. Not going to argue
Yeah.
with it. He's always going to have an audience. I'll tell you what just triggers me is he's in his big auditorium and you hear a voice, "We love you." Ugh. It's just because you're championing this guy.
It's a weird dynamic. It's a
Yeah,
weird dynamic to be like, yeah, let's not make it all about Louis C.K.
I know. So yeah, in our effort to slam Louis C.K., we've quoted two of his bits
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
already.
That's how much he's
Okay,
canceled.
so we're talking
Yeah.
about
So let's back up. Let me give you, when we talk about stand-up comedy, American stand-up comedy, I
yeah.
think anybody that's doing any kind of social commentary, any kind of political comedy, any kind of talking about events of the day, right? We
Mhm.
all trace our heritage back to Lenny Bruce,
Mhm.
who there's debate about this, but he was probably the first comic to
Right.
really kick open the doors and say, rather than just be kitschy, rather than do I love my wife, take her, rather than just do the same old, I want to talk about real issues in the real way people talk about them. And he started to do that and he paid a price. 1961, he was arrested in San Francisco in the middle of a performance for violating indecency laws by saying the word cocksucker.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot you can read about this. There's a lot of YouTube that you can also track down about this. What he was really being arrested for was he was making fun of the Catholic religion. And he was
Right.
doing a lot of satire, a lot of critical stuff around it. And he talks about being on trial,
Uh-huh.
the obscenity trial, and the judge had ashes on his forehead for Ash Wednesday or at whatever.
Uh-huh.
Everyone in the jury had ashes on their forehead. The prosecuting attorney had ashes on his forehead. And he's just sitting there. And what is really driving him crazy is there's a cop on the witness stand quoting his act
Yeah.
from a notebook. And he's, Your
Hell.
Honor, let
Yeah.
me do my act. Let me
Right.
do my act. You can see how it comes together. It's not about the word cocksucker, it's about the context of how I'm using it, which is
He's doing my
fascinating in and of
act, and
itself. He's
remember in
butchering my
Lenny?
act.
He's doing my
Yeah,
act, and he's bombing.
that was the thing that was killing him more than it, which I love because that's such a comic thing. He's
Yeah.
on trial for his livelihood, but this guy is killing my act. So think about that. You put that in perspective. You can say virtually anything today as a comedian, any word you want, any
Right.
curse word. You can make fun of people, and people are going to defend it, and it's probably going to make you go viral. And this guy paid the price in the beginning for just saying a word that almost any sixth grader is saying as an insult,
And he
right?
got truly canceled.
He truly got
And when you're
canceled.
truly getting canceled, you're screwed. You're at
He lost all bookings. He
right.
started to
You
get arrested in
lose
Chicago
money.
and New York.
Right.
Nobody would book him because they were afraid of having the show shut down. Nobody wanted to do that. Fast forward 2023, there's a Chinese comedian that got arrested for doing a bit where he's comparing the dogs that he has with the Chinese military. Now, there's a lot of debate, and I don't understand all of the nuances of the language. Was he just making a play on words joke, or was he being critical of the military? Whatever the case is, the Chinese government put him in jail for a year, charged him an exorbitant fee, for the pleasure of going to jail. And that was the end of his career. Also, that was the end of any kind of Chinese stand-up comedy revolution occurring. In 2017, I was in China. I was in Shanghai and I was performing to a huge expat community that was over there. And I kept going back, and they kept supporting me. I spent two
Expat?
months. Yeah, so English speakers I would go there, and you had Israelis, Australians, anybody that spoke German, anybody that spoke English, all these different people from around the world that happened to be in Shanghai doing business,
Oh, okay.
working
So the
there.
English speakers.
English speakers, right?
Yeah.
So huge community, and stand-up comedy started to just explode over there. And I remember talking to the booker that brought me over, because what we started to notice is the first time I was there, it was all expats.
Mm-hmm.
But by the fourth time they brought me back, about a quarter of the audience were
Mm-hmm.
Chinese nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, aren't you worried that the government is going to figure out that stand-up comedy is making fun of power?
Uh-huh.
And he's, yeah, we're worried.
Uh-huh.
But at the moment, they were like, eh. Then they started to get Chinese national comedians that
Okay,
were
so
like,
then they
hey,
started doing comedy.
they started doing comedy. And
Mm-hmm.
then, yeah, little by little, you notice that these, what they would call minders, government minders, started
Mm-hmm.
showing up in the back of the room and taking notes. And then by 2020, when you started to have the lockdowns, that was it. That was it for Chinese stand-up comedy, because you cannot speak
Wow.
truth to power. And they started to kick out all of the foreign influences, they called it. And any Chinese national that was still doing stand-up comedy, those shows got
And
raided.
that is scary. That
That
is a
is very
lack of
scary.
freedom. I don't want my son in a country without humor. And so
Well,
here's a question. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. It's not just about a lack of humor. We talk about these guys, these comedians are like, oh, I'm being canceled, when your career is still earning you millions of dollars a year. This is basic free speech. This is
Right.
basic when people,
Right.
and
If
that's
you
the
were
thing about,
canceled, you couldn't work.
right, right.
And so let
And
me go
not just
ahead.
canceled, these comics were being
Right.
put in jail and
Mm-hmm.
then being charged ridiculous fees.
Right.
So it just destroyed their
That's
livelihood.
when you're
That's cancel.
canceled, you are financially squeezed.
Yeah.
You are screwed. And no one's there to cheer for you. No one cares.
No way.
You get
Everyone's afraid
canceled
to.
in silence. Now,
Yeah.
so what do you say to people that might go, no, Dave Chappelle they wanted to cancel him. He's just
Yeah.
so great. The fans won't allow it, but no,
Yeah.
they're coming after him. What do you say to that?
I think you look, people are expressing their concern that he is not eloquently speaking about an issue he understands. And that's probably the nicest way to put it. I have a theory about what's going on with Chappelle. Again, here's another guy I idolized that broke down what it was
Right.
like being black in America. His entire Chappelle show was really built around these
Mm-hmm.
sketches that were very subversive in how they were demonstrating, hey, look, black people are still paying a price just for being black in America. And he was doing it with humor, he was doing it with satire, he was doing it in very intelligent, funny ways. And then what I think happened, and this might just be my opinion, right? He sees this other marginalized community suddenly gaining traction. He would say things like, who's marching for George Floyd? Like we all did. Like I went to all
Mm-hmm.
of those protests. You know what else I went to? I also went to protests for transsexuals and their
Uh-huh.
rights. Like
Trans.
I'm sorry, trans. I apologize.
All right.
Like you see, even I'm still
It's
learning.
okay.
Like that's the thing, that's nobody is getting this
We're
perfect.
splaining. We're doing our
We're
best.
splaining it. We're
Explain
splaining
this,
it.
dude. Yeah.
But what I think really happened there is he felt like we took our eyes off of his community. And now we started to focus on this other community. That's my theory. I
Mm-hmm.
could be 100% wrong. God knows people tell me when I've expressed it that I am wrong. But I think the other important issue here is in no shape, way, or form can anybody say that Chappelle has been canceled. He keeps
Right.
getting Netflix specials over and over. I know that as soon as the Punchline puts his name up, they sell the shows out.
Mm-hmm.
He,
Right.
what I think is sad though, is I think again, like what happened with Louis C.K., he attracts this audience now, which is, we love you,
He's
Dave.
right.
You keep speaking truth to
He's
power.
attracting, and that's where I don't want to say concerns me, but what I tend to notice, he's attracting a certain, whatever you want to call it, MAGA mentality. And when I referred to, when I use the term fascisty, this is why I'm saying that. So that can sound to some people, that might sound like crazy, exaggerated, sensational, right? Not fascist. I'm not saying he's a fascist. I'm saying there's different types of comedians, right? You've got your joke tellers. And that's why a guy like Dave Attell, hilarious, totally not politically correct, but he is there to entertain. He is not getting canceled and will never get canceled because his point of view is clear, right? He can talk about whatever he wants. He think about the shit he has said. So notice when we start to talk about, oh, you can't talk about anything. Yeah, you can if you're funny.
If
All
you're
right.
funny. That, I
If you're
mean, that's
funny.
that's the bottom line. And
If you're
some of these
funny,
guys are just, they're saying angry things.
right. Now, what I find fashion, so you have your joking comedians that tell jokes, then you have comedians that are truth tellers, that are using jokes to really say something. Bill Hicks, Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, etc. And by the way, there's not that many of them because there's not that many people. I never tried to be that because I don't have any business doing that. If you're new to comedy and you're like, I'm going to go out and fuck it, maybe
Oh, they're the
figure out
worst. Oh my
figure out what's
God.
funny about you, and it's probably not that because those guys were just
Yeah.
doing what they thought was funny. They weren't out to shock anyone.
You bring up an interesting point because I worked with a young comic recently,
Mm-hmm.
and he on purpose was using words that polite society is like, hey, we don't use that word.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole thing, his pride was like, I'm gonna use this word and I'm gonna get them to hear it and I'm gonna get away with it. And at the end of the show, I'm like, yeah, but was it funny?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're a comedian. Your first
Right.
job is to be funny.
Right. If you can be the funniest person in the room and make us think, do it. But first be funny.
First
First.
be funny. And that takes a long
Few
time.
people can do it. Bill Hicks was always the funniest guy in the room,
Yeah.
and he happened to be someone that could also talk about the most substance. Have respect for people that have actually been canceled. and
Yeah.
leave that to them. Leave that to the Joe Klosiks of the world and the
I'm a
world.
minor. I'm a minor when
Never,
I
but
try. I
have a
try.
little. But okay, so
Let me
again, back to real quick. Let me make this
yeah,
point. I'll move on. Back to the fascisty thing.
yeah.
So, for what happens with the truth tellers, there's always been until now this understanding. I thought the truth tellers tell truth to power,
Mm.
stick up for the little guy, right? Even when Bill Hicks got censored from David Letterman,
Mm-hmm.
look that up on YouTube. Bill Hicks got his last from Letterman, and it was the joke that got him edited off of it was he was doing a satire on homophobia. And he said, no, listen to the bit. I wasn't being homophobic. He defended his bit based
Yeah.
on that. In other
Yeah.
words, the expectation is I'm not just making fun of people.
Here's an interesting thing, and now we're talking about liberals ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Left of center. Oftentimes, it is the liberals that will create the problem for the truth teller. Because if you're going to be a truth teller, I have to mention the bad thing in
Mhm.
order to make
Right.
fun of the bad
Absolutely.
thing. But a
Absolutely.
lot of times, and I've seen this in San Francisco so many
Absolutely.
times,
Hmm.
I will mention the bad thing and then the crowd shuts down on me.
Hmm.
As if just mentioning it means I support it. It's
That's
like,
a
look,
part of the picture,
it's
right?
a
We
part of the
have to, you've
picture,
got
and
to
it's
get to it.
it's it's
You have
fascinating
to.
to watch.
So that's where liberals, that's where we have problems. You
That's
have
where
to
we have
talk.
problems.
In
Yeah.
order to have a joke, you got to get to the punchline.
You
I,
well,
I
you
gotta
gotta
fucking get there.
you
Yeah.
also have to trust if you've listened to a comedian for more
Yeah.
than 5 minutes and they're funny and they're making you laugh and you can surmise their point of view is left of
Hmm.
center, then you can't shut down when they
Hmm.
bring up Trump, when they bring up trans, when they bring up issues that liberals hold near and dear to their heart, because
Yeah.
they're not bringing them up to suddenly go, ha, surprise, I support that. No,
Right.
they're bringing it up to mock it, to knock it down.
Right.
And it's
You got to be able
fascinating
to
to
talk
watch
about it.
an audience. I'm not the one who coined this term, but I know in San Francisco, before anybody laughs at anything, they have to stop and consult their inner censor.
Hmm.
Like jokes in San Francisco take an extra beat sometimes
Hmm.
because the crowd has to go, hey, is that
Everyone
okay?
at the San Francisco show is laughing on the way home
Yeah, yeah.
because they got to
They
figure it
they got to
out.
really like, is it okay if I
Yeah.
march for
Oh,
that?
that's
Yeah.
definitely happening.
Yeah.
Okay. That I think people conflate. One is this sense of the public tightens up and says, don't say that word anymore because we're offended.
Yeah.
And that's usually the argument that it's not me, it's the public, right? I should be able to say this.
Right.
Now, but the other process is that we grow, we mature as a society. For instance, remember back in the early 80s, 84-ish, that comedy boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
When everybody was talking about airline food and it's nice to be here and
That's a pretty good Seinfeld.
thank you.
What's the deal with that?
Why is the sock? And you heard a lot of white comedians doing, I don't know how else, but making fun of black people.
Yeah.
It was a lot of this is back. Hey, bro, what's happening, bro? There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Now, why don't you hear that anymore?
We moved on. We
We moved
grew.
on. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And so a
Yeah.
lot of times it's not political correct. It's that we're beyond that.
Yeah.
Huh, ladies? Are you with me? No, we're not. Because you're a fucking hack.
Well, there's that too.
It's not necessarily a free speech issue because you've said it and you're getting the blowback you get. And I would say
Exactly. Yeah.
95% of the time that's what's going on. People are reacting, and we don't live in a cancel culture. We live in a culture of noise. Now there is more noise now.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody, fuck you, cancel him. I think they should kick him off the thing. That's what's around us.
Can you do
Fucking
that
kill that
again?
motherfucker.
Can you do that again? I want that to be my ringtone.
Okay, yeah, that is everybody. Fuck that. He shouldn't even be allowed to get. Okay,
That is beautiful.
but that's on the right and the left, surrounding us
100%.
everywhere, always. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna tell a joke. If you told a joke in our era, my era, no one was gonna talk about it. No, that is just the age of information. But canceling is done by arms of power that can take money away from you, that can
Yeah.
affect you.
Yeah.
And just because a bunch of woke people are yapping, you're not getting canceled.
No, you're tapping into a different audience that supports your point of view. And I think what you hit on the thing is it's not a free speech issue. You
Mm-hmm.
said it out loud, and now there's consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on who you're saying it in front of, some audiences don't want it. Some audiences are
Right.
like, nah. And I think it's a very narrow-minded, untalented comedian that
Mm-hmm.
decides to make their act about, no, I want to continue to
Right.
say these words.
Well,
Society moved on.
I'll disagree with you a little bit. You
Oh,
want to say it, make it clever.
make it clever.
Make
Yeah.
it work. Go fucking say it till the day you die, if that's the hill you want to die on, but change it up a little.
Yeah,
And
I agree. And
do,
society's going to continue to grow.
yeah,
Society's going
do
to
your
continue to move
fucking
on.
thing.
And you can either decide I'm going to continue to write and grow
Mhm.
as well, or I'm going to just get stuck and stale and I'm going to defend it and I'm going to end up going down
Mhm.
as just an old white guy who
Right.
doesn't want to grow.
So I'm gonna sum it all up right now. You
Sum
ready?
it all up,
I
buddy.
got
Let's
it
do it.
going. Okay. So
Bring it
what
home.
happens is you got a guy like Patton Oswalt, or let me ask you, who is the quintessential kick-ass comedian who can just say what they want to say and somehow it's funny?
Patton's a really good example because he says things funny and he says funny things. And
Right.
there is I think, a left-leaning point of view behind everything that he's
Right.
saying. And when he does say stuff that he knows is offensive, he is playing with your expectation and he's
Right.
going to point something out to
Right.
you.
Okay. So here's what happens. A guy like Patton makes it look easy, right? And he goes up and he does his thing and he talks about exactly what he wants to and he walks the line of right and left. I remember he did a bit about how he was really jealous of just bigots and racists because they get to crystallize their problems. It's a funny bit. Like,
Yeah.
I say to myself, what's wrong with me? I don't know, not enough vitamin D. I don't know. I think I'm a little depressed. What's wrong with you? The Jews? I'm just that focus. I
Yeah.
admire that. Now that's
Yeah.
comedy right there.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And it's a good example of how you got to lighten up. We see Patton, a young comedian sees Patton making it look easy and they go, I want to do that. And I think they can go right to that.
Yeah.
From zero
Yeah.
to brilliant in 5 seconds. Patton for 10 years was at open mics reading things. If the audience didn't laugh, throwing it out. So it's a balance of, I want to say what I want to say, but I'm always trying to connect. It's always funny first.
It's always funny. And that has to be the
And
guiding principle.
if you are clever, you can do it. Bill Burr has a bit on trans. It's funny because he nuances it. He's, look, I realize I'm an old guy. I don't get it. And he
100%.
weaves it in.
I think there's also,
you can talk about anything.
You can talk about anything, but you gotta be funny.
Mhm.
And there is a difference between funny and shock value. Getting a reaction from the audience is not the same
Right.
as getting laughter from the audience.
And in closing, the one thing a comedian doesn't want to do is be a hack. A hack is someone that does very easy material that's been
All
done
been done.
before
Yeah,
to an audience that is easy, right?
of course.
So when we started, a hack was a guy talking about men and women are different in airline food in front of a bunch of just people, just your average people, and killing. Now,
Killing. Yeah.
a hack can be an anti-woke comedian under the guise of truth telling, and that's annoying. Hack under the guise of
Yeah.
that, but you're not
Yeah.
taking any risk.
No,
And you're not
you're
necessarily funny. Maybe you're funny. You're not necessarily, though.
yeah. No, I would agree with that. Nice summation, Mr.
Thank you.
Rothenberg.
Thank you. Should we take this opportunity to wrap this awesome
This
episode?
episode was brought to you by avocados from my girlfriend's mother's backyard.
You got another one there?
Of course.
His girlfriend's mother's. Okay, if you're interested in any avocados, contact Joe.
Yeah, they're still ripe.
Buddy, where are you going to be performing?
I think this will come out after.
Whatever.
I'll be at Cobb's Comedy Club Wednesday the 15th with my stand-up comedy game show. Get it?
Get
Always
it.
a
And you're
good
there
time.
regularly, right?
I'm there once a month with the game show. Also, next month, I will continue to do my monthly show at the Punchline, which is just me doing stand-up. I get to present other young comedians,
Joe
and I get
Klosick
to
and friends.
Joe Klosick and friends. Come on out.
This is the real deal. Joe
This is the
Klosick and friends.
Yeah. I don't really know them.
Okay, so go to Cobb's Comedy Club. Right.
Yeah.
There's
Or
people
you
that are
visit me online,
yeah.
stagejoe.com,
Okay,
stagejoe.com.
stagejoe.com, Cobb's Comedy Club, and the Punchline in San Francisco. We'll see you next week
Peace out.
on the Splain.
Us Blaine.